Imagine a city rising out of a lake, not a small settlement, not a temporary camp, but a massive, thriving city. Stone temples stretching toward the sky, white buildings reflecting sunlight across the water, canoes gliding through canals like streets, bridges, markets, crowds, life everywhere. A city so advanced, so structured, so alive, that when outsiders first saw it, they struggled to believe it was real. Some thought it was a dream. Some thought it was a dream. Vision. Some thought it was something not meant to exist. This was Tenochtitlan, the heart of the Aztec Empire, a place built from determination, belief, and ambition. And within just a few years, it would be destroyed. Not slowly, not over generations, but suddenly, violently, completely. So, how does something like that happen? How does a civilization rise from nothing, become one of the most powerful empires in its region, and then collapse almost overnight? To understand the fall, you have to understand the beginning, because the Aztecs were not always powerful. They did not begin as rulers. They did not begin as builders of cities. They began as outsiders, wanderers, a people without a permanent home. They were known as the Mexica for years, possibly decades. They moved across the land, searching, not just for a place to settle, but for sign, a sign promised to them by their god, a vision that would tell them where they belonged. An eagle, perched on a cactus, devouring a snake. It sounds simple, but finding that exact image in the Providus, vastness of the land, was not easy. They wandered. They struggled. They were rejected by other groups, pushed away, forced into less desirable land. They were not respected. They were not feared. They were seen as nothing special, until one day they found it. In the middle of a swampy lake, surrounded by water, difficult to access, difficult to live on. There it was, the eagle, the cactus, the snake, the sign they had been waiting for. Most people, faced with that location, would have walked away. A lake is not an ideal place to build a city. There is no solid ground, no easy farming, no natural protection from flooding. It is unstable, unpredictable, unforgiving. But the Mexica did not walk away. They saw something else, opportunity. If they could survive there, they could not easily be attacked. If they could adapt, they could control the environment. If they could build, they could become something more. So they stayed. And in the year 1325, they began building. Tenochtitlan. At first, it was small, simple, basic structures, temporary solutions. But over time, something remarkable began to happen. They adapted to the environment. They learned how to work with the lake instead of against it. They created chinampas, artificial islands made from mud, vegetation, and woven materials, floating farms, highly productive, capable of growing large amounts of food in a small space. This was not just survival, this was innovation. They built canals, turning water into pathways. They built causeways, connecting the island to the mainland. They created systems of movement, transportation, trade. The city began to expand. More people arrived. Structures became more permanent. Temples were constructed. Markets formed. Organization developed. What started as an unlikely settlement became something extraordinary. And as the city grew, so did their ambition. They were no longer just surviving. They were rising. The Mexica began forming alliances, learning from stronger groups, building relationships. But they also learned something else. War. Through conflict, they gained power. Through strategy, they gained influence. Eventually, they formed what would become known as the Triple Alliance, a powerful partnership between Tenochtitlan and two other city-states. Together, they expanded. Not randomly, not without purpose, but strategically. They conquered neighboring regions. They asserted dominance. They built an empire. But their empire was different. They did not control every region directly. Instead, they demanded tribute. Goods, resources, wealth, food, gold, textiles, and sometimes people. This system made them powerful. It made them rich. It allowed Tenochtitlan to grow even larger, even more impressive. But it also created something dangerous: resentment. Because the people they conquered did not forget. They did not feel united. They did not feel loyal. They felt controlled, used, watched, waiting for a moment when the balance of power might shift. And while that tension quietly built beneath the city, surface, Tenochtitlan continued to thrive. At its height, it may have had over 200,000 people. That made it one of the largest cities in the world at the time, larger than most cities in Europe. Its markets were enormous, filled with goods from across the empire. Its temples were massive, symbols of power, belief, and control. Its streets were clean. Its systems were organized. Its people were structured into a clear hierarchy. At the top, the emperor, a ruler with both political and religious authority. Below him, nobles, priests, warriors, merchants, farmers, craftsmen. Everyone had a role. Everyone had a place. Everything had meaning. And at the center of everything was religion. The Aztecs believed the universe was fragile, that balance had to be maintained, that the sun itself required energy to continue its journey across the sky, and that energy came from sacrifice, human sacrifice. To an outside perspective, it can seem brutal, difficult to understand, but to the Aztecs, it was necessary. It was not about cruelty, it was about survival. They believed that without sacrifice, the sun might not rise, darkness could take over, the world could end. So they performed rituals, ceremonies, offerings, acts, meant to sustain existence itself. This belief shaped everything: their wars, their traditions, their identity. And, for a time, it worked. The empire grew, the city thrived, the system held, until something changed. In 1,519 ships appeared along the coast. Strange ships, unlike anything the Aztecs had seen before, carrying men from across the ocean, men with different weapons, different animals, different intentions. They were led by Hernán Cortés, a Spanish explorer, determined, ambitious, and not alone. When news of their arrival reached the Aztec emperor, Moctezuma II, the response was not immediate war. It was hesitation, uncertainty, curiosity. There are many theories about why. Some believe Moctezuma thought these newcomers might be connected to a god. Others believe he was trying to understand their intentions before acting. What is clear is that he allowed them to approach, and eventually to enter Tenochtitlan. When the Spanish arrived in the city, they were stunned. They had not expected this. They had not imagined anything like it. A city on water, order, scale, beauty, complexity. It challenged their assumptions, but admiration did not last, because where they saw beauty, they also saw opportunity, wealth, power, control. And slowly, tension began to build. The Spanish began asserting influence, testing boundaries, pushing limits. Eventually, they took Moctezuma hostage, attempting to control the empire through him. It was a dangerous move, and it did not go unnoticed. The people of Tenochtitlan were not passive. They were not unaware. And the situation became unstable. Then, everything broke. During a religious ceremony, Spanish forces attacked. Aztec nobles were killed, unarmed, unexpectedly. The reaction was immediate. Anger, outrage, violence. The city erupted. The balance collapsed. The Spanish were no longer guests. They were enemies. Fighting broke out across Tenochtitlan. The Spanish, outnumbered, overwhelmed, were forced to flee. They escaped at night, under pressure, under attack. Many did not survive. This event became known as the Night of Sorrows. It could have ended there. The Spanish could have left. The Aztecs could have regained full control. History could have taken a different path, but it did not, because Cortés returned. And this time, everything was different. He did not come back alone. He came back with allies, thousands of them, indigenous groups who had long resented Aztec rule, who saw this moment as their chance to break free, their chance to fight back. The balance of power shifted. But even more devastating than alliances was something no one could control. Disease, smallpox. It spread quickly, silently, relentlessly. The Aztecs had no immunity. They had never encountered it before. It moved through the population, leaving destruction behind. People died in large numbers. Communities collapsed. Leaders were lost. The structure of the empire weakened. Not from the outside, but from within. And as this invisible force spread, the final phase began. In 1521, the Spanish and their allies returned to Tenochtitlan. This time, they came, prepared, for siege, for destruction, for the end. They surrounded the city, cut off supplies, destroyed the causeways, controlled the water. There was no easy escape, no relief, no recovery. The city began to suffer. Food became scarce. Disease continued to spread. The people weakened, but they did not surrender immediately. They resisted, fought, defended their city, their home, their empire. The fighting was relentless. Street by street, building by building, canal by canal. The city that once symbolized strength began to break. Not all at once, but piece by piece, day by day. Until finally, after months of resistance, it ended. Tenochtitlan fell. The empire collapsed, and with it, an entire era of power came to an end. But the fall of the Aztecs was not caused by a single moment. Not a single battle, not a single decision. It was a combination. Alliances, resentment from conquered peoples, disease, internal structure, timing. Everything converged at once. And the result was irreversible. But even then, the story does not truly end, because civilizations do not disappear completely. They change, they evolve, they leave behind pieces of themselves. And the Aztecs left behind a legacy that still exists today. In Mexico, in culture, in language, in traditions, in symbols. The image of the eagle perched on a cactus, devouring a snake, still remains. A reminder of where it all began. A reminder of what they built. From a swamp, they created a city. From a city, they built an empire. And even in defeat, they left a mark on history that cannot be erased. Because history is not just about victory, it is about impact. And the Aztecs changed the world. Their rise was extraordinary. Their fall was sudden. But their story continues. And it serves as a reminder that even the greatest civilizations are not invincible, that power can fade, that systems can break, that change can come faster than expected, but also that what is built, what is created, what is remembered, can last far beyond the fall, and some stories never truly end.